Hello, everybody. It's really lovely to be with you once again on our Extraordinary Moms webinar series. And today I am so looking forward to speaking with a good friend and colleague, another passionate mom supporter in our world, Jo Abbot. Jo Abbot is the founder and CEO of a career coaching and training company working across Southern Africa. Jo works with people of all ages, but as a working mum herself, she specializes in supporting women who go back to work. Jo is both UK and US qualified as a career coach and is a professional member of the US-based International Association of Career Coaches. She upholds the IACC Code of Ethics, including standards on the highest levels of professionalism, continual professional development, and client confidentiality. And having spent some time getting to know Jo and understanding her passion for women, we could not but have her as part of our webinar series this year as we celebrate our 10th birthday. So Jo, welcome to our webinar series. You are definitely one of our extraordinary moms.
Thank you, Philippa. It's a real pleasure to be joining you today.
Oh, it's good to have you with us. Jo, before we kick off with some of our questions, just tell me a little bit about this passion that you have for enabling women to get back to work.
So Philippa, I've always been a working mum, and I took maternity leave twice to bring up my two boys who are now teenagers. And I was surprised at somebody who had always worked, how much confidence I lost during my maternity leave. And even though I was going back to the same organization, sometimes with a promotion, sometimes into the same job, I would sit in a meeting when people would say, it's fabulous, Jo is coming back, in one of those keeping in touch days. Just before you go back and say, Jo's going to be leading X and Y. And I would feel terrified on the inside, thinking, I'm just worried about, did I change the diaper? When am I going to breastfeed my baby? How on earth am I going to make this transition back to work in the next few weeks? And yet I found I could do it. And I was able to kind of take that driving force that I think women have to be at work, but also manage the family and the household. And through going through that experience myself, I've just begun to help so many other women find that confidence and find that ability to balance very different parts of their lives. So that's where my passion comes from, my own experience, and then helping other people.
Yeah, that's great. And it so often happens like that, where you've experienced something and then see a need. And Jo, just in your experience, you know, given those terrifying feelings that women have often returning to the workplace, what are the key motivators behind so many women and moms returning to work?
Look, Philippa, I think it comes into sort of three chunks. There's very much a life cycle chunk. So women may take a break, particularly when their children are very young. And as they grow up, decide either at primary, high school, some people even later, when they've left school, to feel now is the time to get back to work. So very much a kind of life cycle reason. Sadly also, and I think you will have experienced this, there can be big life changes for people. That can be sometimes a separation, sometimes a divorce. I work with people who've also had deaths within their immediate family. And those life changes can really change the makeup of the family and the financial situation of a family. And those can be big drivers too. But there is a third set of reasons as well that I find, and those are very much internal. And sometimes women just feel around their own self-esteem, looking for purpose and meaning in their life. That's a really big motivator for them. I've just been working with a woman recently, and she just said to me, my children are saying, Mum, why don't you work? You're amazing. You've done all these things. Dad works. We're now going to university. Why don't you work? And she kind of had that strong feeling like, well, I've actually given up my whole working life to bring you children up, and now you're turning the tables on me. So it can be life cycle, it can be life change, it can be internal, or a combination of the three.
Yeah, those are very real situations, and it's so interesting seeing the different stages that women go through just through Recruit My Mom, and hearing the different stories, and all the ones you've touched on are exactly what we see within Recruit My Mom. Just earlier when you touched on your passion for enabling women to be able to get back to work, there were some of the fears you touched on, but, what do you think are some of those biggest fears that women feel about returning to work, and where do they come from?
Yeah, I think the first one is very much about confidence, Philippa. Very much sort of internal fears for women, not feeling they have anything to offer, anything to value, that their skills are dated. So definitely there's an internal set of fears, and I know I felt those. Secondly, I think there's a direction set of issues, which are around, well, what would I do if I came back to work? Would I do what I was doing before? Would I do something differently? Do I want to work flexibly? So there's kind of a direction set of fears, which can be big blockers because people are not sure what they want to do. And then there's a very practical set of fears. People say to me, Jo, I don't even have a CV. I don't know where my draft is. Have there been big changes in the work environment? We know technology's become much bigger. COVID's happened. You've all got much stronger digital skills. So yeah, those fears can be very much internal. They can be about direction. They can be very practical. They can be all of those things.
Yeah, that's true. And when they're coming back, do you find that they come back into similar positions they held before? Are they looking to make big changes? What are the general trends that you see with women who are returning back to the workplace? And if they're making big changes, how do they even go about that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Philippa. And I think it really depends on the time frame, the financial pressures, and the confidence levels. So some of the things we've talked about before. Where time is short and financial pressures are high and or confidence is low, then generally using your existing skills and experience is definitely going to be your quickest way back to work. But if you have the luxury of time and you've got a few more financial resources behind you, then you can take a bit more time to figure out what you want to do, if you want to do something different, and use those resources to retrain. So I see both cases, but I also see people, you think about going back to work as sequence. So they may go back doing something that they did before that gets them back into work. They know that's not what they want to do long term, but they say, look, let me get back to work, get that professionalism again, get used to managing my family, my household, my job. And then when I'm comfortable doing that, I will use it as a stepping stone to what I really want to do next. And I'm sure you've seen that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And such practical and good advice there as well, Jo. Thank you. And what are the, if you had to choose 3 things that women should really think about when returning to the workplace, what would you say what would they be, those top 3 things?
Wow, gosh, there's so many things. So it's hard to pick 3, but I guess the why would come first for me, Philippa, getting really clear on their motivation for going back to work. When people are clear on the why, their motivation level goes up, and then our ability to then follow through with that and get them back to work really increases as well. So I think I would start with the why. But after the why comes the what. What is it you want to do? What's your purpose? People have different words for this. Your purpose, your ambition. What does success in the workplace look like for you? And it's hard to get going on a job search or come to a recruitment agent like RecruitMyMom if you're not really clear on what you want to do. So I work a lot with women on the why, and then I work with them a lot on the what you want to do and how you want to do it. But I think the third area I do a lot of work on, so my third priority, I think, would be about reframing. And that's really about getting people to value themselves and their skills, focusing on what they have and not what they don't have. So I spend a lot of time talking to women and realizing they've done these completely amazing things while they've been bringing up their children. But very little of that is usually on paper, and they're trying to hide several years. And I just say career break, and we put down the kinds of things you've been doing. And then using that to say, yes, I may not have worked formally for 5 years, but what I have been doing during this period is X or Y. And you find these women have been doing tons of fundraising, running committees, doing loads of really important things, which we document in a brief way, just to show that those skills are still there. They've just been used in a much more family, community sense. So I think it's the why, it's the what, but a lot of that reframing, because we talked about confidence earlier, and helping people think about what are the skills that they do have and how do they use those back in the workplace.
I like the way you use the word reframing. We use a term called transferable skills at Recruit My Mom when we give advice, which is for many women who are either doing the switch or returning to the workplace is just like you said, you know, they may have been using all those skills in other areas. And how do you take those skills and transfer them into the workplace environment or onto your CV? And that's a very valuable exercise, Jo. So that leads me on to, how do you work with women to get them back to work? And then what are your top tips for them for success?
So through my practice Horizons Careers, I work with a lot of women one-to-one. But I also work with women in groups through a program that I've specially developed called Fresh Horizons. And I think it's the best way for people to get back to work, because they have that sense of community. They're able to share their experience with others and realize they're not alone when they're feeling nervous, when they're feeling that lack of confidence, all those fears we talked about, the financial pressures that families are under, especially in this environment right now. So I work with them one-to-one, and then I work with them through this program where we meet weekly over a number of weeks, and we take people through this program. But I think my first tip is really to treat the job search like a job. So taking it very, very seriously, literally allocating in your diary, electronic or your physical diary, whatever you use, a kind of back to work period, and building small, regular work habits. And I much prefer it when I say to women, how many hours are you going to dedicate to this job search? If they're very honest and they say, Mondays are a write-off, Jo, maybe an hour, but I can give Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, 3 hours each, and possibly 2 hours on a Friday, because there's a lot of sport and other things that I do at the school. That's perfect, because we get that 10, 11-hour program and we work within that. That's how many hours we're going to put into getting back to work. I have other people who come and say, oh, I'm going to do everything. And they work crazily with me for 2 or 3 days. But then I don't hear from them again for a month, because they get distracted by things at school, friends, you know, coffees that are always being invited. And that's not so good, because we need to build that kind of regular habit where when people say, come, let's have a quick coffee, you say, well, actually, I'm working this morning, but I can meet you this afternoon. So you begin to build that kind of work habit and discipline into your life even before you get back to work. So treating the job search like a job is how I work with a lot of women. Then obviously the thing we've been talking about is figuring out what you want. And that's really, I have to tell women, is the hardest part, Phillipa, to figure out what you want to do, what motivates you, this thing around your purpose, ambition, what does success look like for you? And how does that work alongside being a mum? So what's the flex you want on how you want to work? And that's a lot of deep thinking, and it's not something you can do on your own. You've got to do that with your family, a partner if you have it, with your children, whoever is part of that immediate family or community. But once we've got that done, I always promise women it's the hardest thing. We have to do it first, but once it's done, the rest is plain sailing. The last area is much more practical. Remember, we talked about that earlier. That's a big area of fear for people, is really building a very good dossier. So, and getting lots of recruitment practice. So cleaning up your social media, getting your LinkedIn, if you haven't got one, together, a very modern CV, and not hiding the gap if you haven't been working. And what I tell women is, let's get comfortable with the discomfort of having not been in work for a number of years, and say that out loud to me so many times, so that when you go to the interview, you will be so skilled at saying, when somebody says, oh, I can see you haven't been working, you'll say, no, that's right, I haven't been in formal employment for the last 3 years, but what I have been doing is, and then you list those things that you've been doing. And then you link it back to your previous experience, and you move the conversation to where you want it to go. So a lot of very practical things I do with people around bringing that dossier to life, but all about confidence. So they feel very able when they go to that interview. They're not saying these things for the first time.
I think that's so useful and so practical. And I can see how that would really help so many people. You know, I think through Recruit My Mom, the biggest obstacle we see that women face coming back into the workplace is confidence. And going through just those 3 steps, I can just imagine how much more confidence they have just stepping into this process of, you know, engaging with a recruiter or engaging with a client for the first time, an employer. So that's amazing, Jo. I have to break our questions now just to say how excited I am about the fact that Fresh Horizons, together with Recruit My Mom, is coming to South Africa, and that this is a program that we're going to be offering together with yourself through Recruit My Mom, and to women all over South Africa. So I'm really looking forward to that, Jo. Really, which is going to be great. And the details for all of that will be in the chat in this webinar. So do look out for that. Jo, as we kind of wind down this discussion, what I would really love to hear is, you know, what do you believe, and why, you know, just for the viewers today of webinars, is let's remind them, why do clients seek them out? Why are women so important in the workplace, and why is it so important that we get women who are wanting to be back into the workplace, back into the workplace?
I mean, this is your real area of expertise, isn't it, Phillipa? But I think, you know, women offer just an amazing skill set. We know labour can be really short in some particular areas and some particular sectors. And I think you're now celebrating your 10 years. I think 10 years ago, it was probably hard to be able to talk to employers about how people want to work flexibly, how people are looking for perhaps part-time workers, but will be some of your most loyal workers as well, if they can find the right environment. I think since COVID, you know, hybrid working, people working from home, people working online is so much more accepted now. But I've just been reading the McKinsey report, Phillipa, that came out in this month in July. And it's all about how do we keep workers in an environment where it's been a big resignation around the world post-COVID. Everybody is on the move. And the most important thing that people can offer, there are 2 things actually. One is career development. So if you're in an organization, keep people developing so they can keep moving up the ladder. But the second most important thing, and this is which speaks to our agenda, which is about flexible working. If you can find ways that can say women can work in different ways, in holidays, in term time, part-time, different days, work from home, work from the office, you're able to keep employees for that bit longer. And we all know the benefits to companies for every year we keep these good performing employees in the company and we don't have that turnover and churn. So I think the McKinsey report from about 6 countries from around the world has just confirmed what you and I know, that if we can offer opportunities for growth and we can keep flexible approaches, which work really well for women as primary carers, trying to balance all of those things. Look, I won't say that I don't hear old-fashioned attitudes, I do. And I work with women a lot to prepare that. We know there's some employers who see women as risky because they're going to ask for maternity leave. I've even heard some employers talking about women being unreliable because they want to go watch their children in sports in the afternoon. There are those out there, and I'm sure you've experienced that. But there are many more who say, actually, this is fantastic. I really don't care if they go and watch sport on a Wednesday afternoon because I know they'll catch it up Wednesday night. They'll do their hours, they'll do more than their hours, and they're going to stay with the company. So I think COVID has really helped this environment for women who want to work in slightly different ways. I'm certainly seeing that with so many different employers, that people can see real value in the skills and the loyalty that women bring, because when they get back to work, they find those companies they're comfortable in, they find the hours and the ways of working that work for them, they're going to be with you for a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other advantages of hiring women at the moment is that in an increasingly digital world, is that women are proving to be really good managers of remote teams, because they have a higher level of empathy, intuition, ability to collaborate in remote spaces. So, you know, I have a list as long as 2 arms of why employers should employ moms, hence Recruit My Mom. No shortage of reasons why. But Jo, I want to thank you for your time this morning. I am so excited about Fresh Horizons coming to South Africa, where we can assist so many more women to get their confidence back in order to step back into the workplace. And if that's something you're interested in, there will be a link that you can click where you can submit your email address to us, and we will send you some information on that as and when it's coming. But Jo, I want to thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for sharing your insights and just your passion for getting women and helping women back into the workplace. It's contagious. So thank you.
And thank you, Phillipa. And can I just wish from Horizons, happy 10th anniversary to Recruit My Mum. You've been such a pioneer. Absolutely love everything you're doing, and just so looking forward to working on the Fresh Horizons program and getting many, many more women back into the workplace. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Jo. And thank you to our viewers today. You know, we really appreciate it, and look out for all our birthday celebrations. We're running a really great competition. And yeah, thank you, Jo, for those lovely words. You take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.